There are many challenges with seniors in this organization, especially in the hoarding world. First of all, I know you probably have all met that person, that demographic of person in their 80s and their 90s and in their 70s too, who grew up in the Depression, went through World War II, so there was rationing. They want to keep everything. My mother-in-law was that person. You know, she had, I don't know, 600 Cool Whip containers, you know, that could be recycled into something else, all that kind of stuff. So they're very frugal, very practical, which are great attributes to have, except when it gets into the way of life and into your home and you can't live. And if they're moving, usually they have limited time to move because of a healthcare issue might have them, like break their hip. And of course, difficult parting with their belongings, and emotional and the physical challenges of senior, which could be many different things, from a walker to a cane, to a wheelchair, to blindness, to hard of hearing, anything like that. Some facts and statistics about hoarding. It is more prevalent in the older population. They estimate 2 to 5% of the general population hoards, and that is worldwide. Hoarding is not just something that happens with older people. Last year I was very fortunate to be asked to speak in Yokohama, Japan for the Japanese Life Organizers Association. I spoke on aging and on the changing role in aging in Japan. If anybody want to go to Japan, I'm sure you can get a lot of clients now because women are not taking care of their seniors anymore, so they really need senior services there. It's really becoming a much different kind of world. But anyway, one of my colleagues there, she actually is working with a gentleman in Japan who cannot get into his home, and he's sleeping on the street. So it is everywhere. He's an older man. And it is everywhere, literally around the world. It really is. It doesn't just here, it isn't just in the United States, it's everywhere. Most people have some sort of comorbidity, such as depression, addiction, trauma. Trauma's a big one. OCD. You can be hoarding and not be OCD, but a lot of people sometimes are OCD with hoarding. It just depends on the person. Dementia, definitely on the older population with hoarding. And usually this history of a traumatic life event is usually the trigger for so many people, whether it's the death of a loved one, a divorce, loss of a job, major illness, something like that. Okay, I always like to bring this up, and part of it is, you know, how society changes with words. The word hoarder, I find it to be a very harsh word and a label. I had a client, we're going to call her Jean, a very highly educated woman, great career. I was called in, this was several years ago, into her one-bedroom apartment, a level 5, which I will talk about the levels, but the highest hoarding possible. Little teeny pathways, refrigerator was taped 3 times, just lots of garbage, all kinds of things. And Jean, as we worked with her, and it was very hard for her to trust us at first, she was 83 when we started working with her, she just said, you know, when I die, all they're going to think about is, they're not going to think, she was in the nursing field, that I was a nurse, a very, very respected nurse. I had children. I, did this, I did that. I had this life where I did all these other things. All they're going to think about me is, oh yeah, I was that hoarder. And that's a horrible word to think about. And she really changed how I felt about that word. So I like to use the word hoarding situation. It's just like somebody who is bipolar. You wouldn't say they're a bipolarer. You wouldn't say somebody's a diabeticer. So it's just something to think about. I think it's sort of like the word mental retardation versus mentally handicapped. Things change over time. And that word can be very harsh. And people who do hoard, they really feel labeled with that word. So it's just something to consider.